Dear friends, dear respected teachers, dear enlightened ones, so wonderful to be here on Christmas 2020, this very strange and wonderful year. And I'm very happy to be able to address the Sangha. I want to go and talk a little bit about this greeting that I frequently do. Some people have asked about it. Whenever I'm talking, I like to bow in with saying, dear respected teachers, dear enlightened ones. And this is a variation on what a lot of people in the Plum Village tradition do, where they say, dear Thai, talking about Thich Nhat Hanh, and dear Sangha. But being encouraged by many people, including Thai, to sort of find my own path on what these things are, I've been exploring that for a number of years. And I noticed that some people, when they bowed in this tradition, instead of saying dear Thai, said dear teachers, because after all, there were many really important teachers, not only in the Plum Village tradition presently, but also in the past. When I say bowing to teachers, I mean all of those great Buddhist teachers that are around me now, the Jack Lawlers, the Jack Cornfields, Rick Hansen, and so many others, but also going out through antiquity, including the Buddha and Jesus. But I also, and I think this is something that has been very much appreciated by people in the Sangha, is that we all are teachers to each other. It is no surprise that whenever we do the kind of Dharma sharing that we do during our usual Sanghas, we'll have a reading and then a discussion, that the wonderful little Dharma talks that come from everybody has been just really wonderful. They're wonderful teachings right then and there. So I find it a little bit artificial even to make a barrier between those people who officially have the title of teacher and those who don't. It is really wonderful in our tradition that wisdom can be found anywhere. And I even remember, and even among people who haven't had much, I remember about 10 years ago that I was asked a question by somebody who was very new to the Sangha, had been coming for about a month. And it kind of knocked the pins out from under me because I couldn't answer her question really. I had to really think about it and kind of give that in. And so it was an idea that she was teaching me that I needed to know more about this. And I think she actually had some ideas about what was going on with that. So everyone is the teacher. Everyone in this Zoom room, everyone not only in the Sangha, but in the greater parts of the world are all our teachers. So I used to bow and say, dear Thai, or then I used to say, dear teachers, and I was usually including just those people, either present or past, who had that mantle. But now when I say, dear respected teachers, I mean everyone. The teachings are not only found in the ideas of all these people, but a lot of other things as well, including nature itself, the sunshine pouring in my window right now, and even some of those fierce teachers, like this tiny little virus that is wreaking havoc upon our society and the world. Teachers everywhere. The other part of my greeting, and I give a little bit of homage to Bodhisattva Steve Lowry for moving me in this direction. We used to say, "Dear Sangha," and Steve Lowry actually even said more, "Dear noble ones." That's what he used to say. And I'll say that sometime instead of "dear enlightened ones." But this kind of idea, another artificial barrier between this idea that there are enlightened people and unenlightened people. And I don't think that's true. I think everyone is enlightened. Everyone has Buddha nature, and everyone has the ability to manifest that Buddha nature, that spark. So that also is a kind of an artificial barrier. And I also don't want to make the artificial barrier between people in Sangha and people out of Sangha, especially on a day like Christmas when there are so many wise teachers in the Christian tradition. I want to say to them also, "Dear enlightened ones." So I am trying to include everybody when I say, "Dear respected teachers, dear enlightened ones." Whatever you feel about yourself, I feel that you are a respected teacher. And I feel that you're enlightened, even if you don't feel that way. That we can just have some time to practice and manifest. And this is what my celebration of Christmas has now become for me. It's a celebration of a great teacher. Let's face it, whatever we want to say about the kinds of things and the trappings that come about with religion. And there are many things that I think are unskillful and difficult. Jesus was a great teacher, and his philosophy guided me through so much of my life. And without him as part of those causes and conditions, I wouldn't be here in the Zoom room. I'm certain that I wouldn't be part of the mindfulness community of Milwaukee if it wasn't for Jesus of Nazareth. An interesting kind of way of being. And there's so many kind of teachers in that tradition. My first Dharma talk, even though I didn't know it was a Dharma talk, was given to me by a monk when I was in 7th grade. I was in a Catholic school, and we actually had monks teaching us. How about that? That's pretty cool. And he made this very interesting statement. He said, "Some people love other people because they're afraid of eternal retribution or eternal reward, or they're seeking eternal reward. In other words, they love other people because it's going to be on the exam, and you better get a passing grade," and that kind of thing. And he also said other people love people so that they can get something out of it, so that something happens, that those people will, do something for them. And he said, but the real people who are really blessed are the people who love just for the sake of loving, and just that's it, and can really, really, truly appreciate the joy of doing that. And again, back as a 13-year-old in Emerson, New Jersey, I didn't appreciate that was my first Dharma lesson. But it resonates even today. It resonates even today. The great lesson, the great commandment that Jesus of Nazareth put forth was love your neighbor as yourself, which is interesting, and it means two things. It means, number one, you should love yourself, but loving your neighbor, feeling that connection. And we go to what the Buddha had said a couple of centuries earlier. He was being challenged by his attendant Ananda, or just having a conversation, maybe not being challenged. And Ananda said to the Buddha, he said, "Lord, it appears that this friendliness we have for each other is half of the practice." And the Buddha said, "Do not say that, Ananda, do not say that. Ultimate friendliness is all of the practice. So they were saying the same things. They were saying the same things, that we are all connected and that we all have this wonderful ability to live in that connection. That's enlightenment. That's the way it is. We are, of course, somewhat programmed to be tribal. And when we bring tribalism into religion or faith or philosophy, things suffer, right? And when we can think of things that many people have had difficulties with Christianity because of a lot of the things that have happened in the name of Christianity in this kind of organized part of it, this tribal part of it. But if we go beyond the tribal part of that, we realize that there is great love and kindness that comes out of it. And the Buddhists are not free of that idea that their tribalism causes suffering. We only have to look to Myanmar to see that people will put on the mantle of tribalism. So we all are connected. We all have a different way of being. And this is the great lesson of our teachers. This is the lesson of Jesus. This is the lesson of Buddha. And this is the lesson of so many other great teachers. The big thing about all of this is, however we decide to become connected, it's the right way to do that. The Dalai Lama recently said, and I think he said it maybe a couple of years ago when the population of the earth was 7 billion, he said, there are 7 billion different ways to look at the way the world is. And Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of the transcendentalists, wrote in an essay in the 19th century that all human beings belong to a church with a membership of one. And this is how we are. And we are so, I am so grateful that we are encouraged in being an American. It's one of our problems, isn't it? We tend to have this individual attitude. No one's going to tell us what to go. But also the idea that we are encouraged in most Buddhist practice and in the real basic teachings of Jesus, to find out for ourselves, to not take anything on faith, but to be aware of what's going on. Here it is, try it out for yourself. So I also like to talk about some of the things that are going on with wisdom. And we talk about how we find wisdom in so many different areas. And of course, Jesus and the Buddha, and not just Jesus and the Buddha, had so many ways of helping us to be wise. And the wisdom of all of these particular teachings, moral teachings, philosophical teachings, little bits of ideas for us to go to sort of practice being one with the universe, so to speak. But not all of the teachings are necessarily verbal or language. I want to just get up a Rumi poem here if I can. There are two kinds of intelligence, one acquired as a child in school, memorizes facts and concepts from books and from what the teacher says, collecting information from the traditional sciences, as well as from the new sciences. With such intelligence, you rise in the world, you get ranked ahead or behind others in regard to your competence in retaining information. You stroll with this intelligence in and out of the fields of knowledge, getting more marks on your preserving tablets. There is another kind of tablet, one already completed and preserved inside you, a spring, overflowing its spring box of freshness in the center of the chest. The other kind of intelligence does not turn yellow or stagnant. It's fluid and it doesn't move from outside to inside through the conduits of plumbing learning. The second knowing is a fountainhead from within you, moving out. Isn't that wonderful news? Isn't that wonderful news? The second kind of knowing is a fountainhead. It's inside you, moving out. You already have it. You're already enlightened. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to do anything special to be enlightened, except just reveal it to yourself, which is, of course, not as easy to say, not as easy to do as I am saying it. So I'd like to get back to the idea about this kind of non-verbal learning, this idea about being informed by the earth and the sky and the air and the sun and the plants and the animals. I think we can get teachers everywhere. The sun is a great teacher. Our pets are great teachers. All these kinds of things going on. But probably the one place where I want to go today is the breath. You know, I got to see a wonderful Dharma talk by Thich Nhat Hanh that was talking about how he said we don't have to have faith in God. We don't have to have faith in Buddha. We just have to have faith in the in-breath. Isn't that amazing? It's just that so much is going on with there. And so we have all found that, haven't we? We've all taken refuge, I suppose, in the in-breath. There it is. Here we are. We all get to breathe and become a little bit more centered, get that little bit of taste of enlightenment, get that little bit of way of uncovering it all. When the Buddha was asked once upon a time, what is the lifespan of a man? And they were asking him in one of those really long, convoluted sutras, which if you've ever read them in their original form has a lot of repetition. So someone volunteers and asks the Buddha, what is the lifespan of a man? Is it 70 years? Which was a really long time, 500 years before Christ was born. I mean, people really weren't living that long. And the Buddha said, no, it's not 70 years. And he says, well, is it 60 years? No, it's not 60 years. Is it 50 years? No, it's not 50 years. On and on and on. As you can see where this is going, is it down to 10 years? Is it 5 years? Is it a year? And the Buddha says no. And he said, they would do whatever I think it's translated into hours and minutes, but I have no idea if people at that time were actually using things like hours or minutes. Is it an hour? Is it a minute? And the Buddha says no. And they said, so he finally asked, what is the lifespan of a man? So the lifespan of a man is a breath. That's it. Every breath is a new life. Every breath is a chance to be reborn. Every breath is a chance to once more, get a little bit closer, a little bit more of a touch to that enlightenment, to the kinds of things that the Buddha and Jesus and the sun and the earth and the oceans are all teaching us, to have confidence in the in-breath. I want to go back a little bit regarding earth then. And I don't know how you all are with this, but when I hear stories about the Buddha or about Jesus, they're always really so much better when I can see him I can see either one as a real human being. I remember lamenting with someone, talking about the Buddha's life as it was written in, say, Old Path, White Clouds, which is Thich Nhat Hanh's biography of this, that the Buddha would be in doing such things as martial arts or archery or something. He'd always come in first. Like, gosh, I wish he had come in fourth sometime. We would have all felt better about that. At any rate, all those kinds of things that go on with Jesus's life too. I don't like the miracles as much. I don't like him kind of walking on water as much as just walking among his disciples, or having a really human moment where he gets really angry in the temple, just like that's just real human stuff. Anyway, getting back to that, in our span of our life, and Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the idea that there is no birth and no death. Well, from nothing, we didn't come from nothing. We're not going to nothing. We existed before we were born. And if you want to look at this in a purely biological and DNA fashion, sure, yes, of course we were. And we don't end up, when we die, becoming nothing, especially if we've had relationships with people over the years. But among that kind of thing, in that spectrum of all of the things that happened to us before or after or during this thing that we call our lifespan, different than what the Buddha called it, there is one event that is truly, truly dramatic. And that's being born and taking the first in-breath. That first in-breath is really interesting in the fact that it is 20 times stronger than any other breath you take in your life, and it's being done by this baby that weighs about 7 pounds. And there it is. We take in that huge breath, and everything changes from being a creature that was involved with just this one other creature, the mother, and living that sort of thing, to being out in the world and being connected with everybody, being able to feel the coolness on their skin and the air rushing in and that sort of thing. And the other thing that happens is that people may not be aware of this, is there's huge changes that goes on in the circulation. The heart changes very quickly. And certain areas open up, certain areas close down. And I like to think of it, that is what really happens at birth. Not in just this very physical sense, that there is something happening, that now your connection with the outside world is much more available, much more present. You hear the voices of the strange people talking around you and the music, and you hear and you feel on your skin coolness, warmth, air, and you can swallow and taste things and smell things and all sorts of things going on. And you have this precious breath, this precious human breath. This breath just goes on and on and on. And many of you know, I had a career as a pediatrician. And especially back in those days, we often went to births that were going to be, that might be problematic mostly. Most of them weren't, but we went to a lot of them. And so about once a month, maybe twice a month, I find myself in a delivery room waiting for a baby to see that. And I kind of regret that I didn't get a chance to really pay attention to that experience of that opening, that big breath, that first real breath, that first real thing that happened. I was too busy having to do all those kinds of things. I had to ready my APGAR score. You know, babies get an APGAR score for how they look at 1 minute and 5 minutes of age. And I was the person kind of responsible for doing that. And I always thought that was kind of odd that not even 60 seconds old and I'm judging you. Already you're getting a passing or failing grade and you haven't had a chance to even adapt to the environment. So these are amazing moments, so many things that change. And everything is now a little bit different. And there is this sort of different and very vibrant connection with the outside world. We are so helpless as babies. We have to be raised by other adults, not just parents, but it takes a village, as they say. So this is the part of the Christmas story that I like to think of. I want to just think about being in this kind of dirty little barn. Everybody's tired. People are just, kind of crabby. It's, late at night, and everything is, and they have to do this journey. They're sort of forced to do this journey by the government. Here's the government interfering. Yes, you must go and get your census taken in your town of your birth. And they're doing all this sort of stuff. And in this kind of dirty barn with, I think a lot of us might cringe if we had to have one of our children or grandchildren born in a dirty little barn with all of the, it's nice that the lamb and the ox were there, but I think a lot of us would say, oh my gosh, look at the germs. And in that moment, there was an in-breath that changed the world. What else are you going to say about it? It changed the world. I like to think of, in this very, very normal human way, that Jesus Christ took this huge in-breath. He wasn't Jesus Christ then. He was just Jesus of Nazareth. He was one baby born among many, even that day. Took in this huge breath. And there he was. All of a sudden, everything had changed for him. But not just changed for him, and changed for the world. We tend to have a little bit of a problem, and I am one of those people that has a little bit of a problem with what Christianity has done over the years. And again, I think a lot of it is because of the tribalism that happens in religion. And the tribalism that happens in religion is not any different from the tribalism that happens in government, in society, and in being a fan of a sports team or any other kind of thing that might end up leaving you to be divided and distant from other people. But the true teaching of Jesus, the true teaching to be kind to others, to love your neighbor as yourself, meaning love yourself, is the great teaching. This changed the world. And I think the other part, not to get into a lot of the details about that, is the idea that whatever you want to say about these people who were Christians and everything else that was going on, is that they'd really changed the Roman Empire. They were epitomes of kindness and balance and love and freedom. And people saw this and everything changed. Everything went on. So your in-breath, the very in-breath that you take, the in-breath that you take refuge in, is the same sort of in-breath that Jesus of Nazareth took, that the Buddha took, and so many great and wise and wonderful teachers took. It is our shared humanity. And perhaps in our own little way, we can't have as much of an influence on the rest of the world as Jesus did or the Buddha did, but in our own little way, taking refuge in our teachers, taking refuge in the teachings, and taking refuge in the Sangha, in the community, not just this community, but the community of all human beings together. We're all breathing, we all have this precious human birth. This is the same thing that we had, that Jesus of Nazareth had. This is our legacy that we have that we hopefully can fulfill. We can manifest our enlightenment. Maybe we can manifest our particular way of looking at this precious human birth. And we can be inspired that this one little baby's cry changed so many things, and that we can ride that wave of change and be kind and connected. Ultimate friendliness. Love your neighbor as yourself, however you want to say it. The great teachers are all telling us, including the great teacher of the sun and the great wrathful teacher, the coronavirus. They're all telling us the same thing. Please take care of each other. Please be open to each other. Please realize this precious human birth does not belong just to you. It belongs to everyone. We're all in this together. This is the great message, I think, of this Great Baby's Cry happening a little bit more than 2,000 years ago and resonating with us today. Thank you all for being here on this wonderful Christmas morning. So, dear friends, I have stopped the recording here. So none of you will be trying to get this done.